Welcome back. Hope y'all had an incredible week. I know I did. I had a good week. Lots of good things happening, lots of good things to think about, lots of things on my mind that I just cannot wait to offload to you. Lucky you. I have been thinking about leadership this week. One of my favorite topics, one of the things I have studied for many, many years of my life, studied by reading books and putting into practice. And I think it's important. I think leadership is incredibly important. But then I also was thinking about purpose. I was thinking about your purpose, your dream, your why, all the things that a leader needs to know, all the things that, well, to put it bluntly, all these books that you see back here, random hair, honestly, it's just a fraction of the amount of books that I have. Leaders are readers. I have been a devout reader since I was a kid. I love reading books about anything. And, well, not anything. I like nonfiction. I like to read about health, self-help, personal growth and development, theology, leadership, business, entrepreneurship, all the things. And I have to tell you that out of those hundreds of books that you see, plus all the ones in boxes in the garage, a lot of them talk about finding your purpose in life. And I don't know about you, but I have found that after reading all of those books, I was still quite confused as to what my purpose in life was, which is bizarre, right? I should know that after reading that many books. And one would think I would know that. And so get my screen ready here because I've got notes for you. This is what's fascinating, okay? These books, they're by theologians, counselors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, life coaches, you name it. And, but I recently came across a book called From Individual to Empire. Check this out. Laura Bull is the author, From Individual to Empire. And I have been absolutely blown away. I feel like I know myself now better than ever after reading her book, which is just like, what? What? After all my years of study. Okay, here's a quick bio. I'm going to read you a little bit about her bio, okay? And I'm attempting to do this without reading glasses, which is dangerous, and that means a massive headache later, so bear with me. Okay. It says, Laura Bull spent 10 years with Sony Music Entertainment, becoming one of the company's youngest executives and spearheading artist development and marketing for globally recognized brands. She's an expert who specializes in transforming entrepreneurs into viable brands and teaching what it takes to become a powerful influencer. Whether you're an artist, blogger, performer, politician, author, or thought leader, this book will change the way you think about your brand and your future. Bull marries positive psychology principles with traditional branding strategies and reveals her revolutionary brand matrix that will have you soaring past personal branding into the very different world of influencer branding. Okay. Granted, not everyone's looking to be an influencer. Not everyone's looking to be big time, but they do generally want to know themselves, right? And what blows my mind is that there is this woman that comes out of the secular music business, has taken names that you would recognize to the top, and she can help you define your purpose better than any people that I've come across, any persons, whatever, that study God, the creator of every living thing, as their job in life. And I know it seems like I'm constantly putting pastors in the ministry down and the church, but I'm not. What I'm trying to do is I'm calling out the church, and I'm included in that, right? I'm the church, you're the church, because we have so grossly failed to develop people into their true essence of themselves. Sadly, I was on a call with our pastors and leadership at our church last night, and our pastor said something incredible. I didn't realize that my oldest daughter, Madison, she was walking around listening. And he said, it's my job, because he knows he's going to be held to account. So he says, it's my job to call out and pull out the best in you and get you to that place that you're called to. It's my job to see that you get there. And Madison looks over at me and she goes, I have never heard a pastor say that. And I said, sadly, baby, I think that might be the case. You know, my girls are raised in church. Very few pastors see that as their role. They may say it in a way of, you know, their job is to have the people doing the work of the ministry. But that's different in that they will make the work of the ministry mean serving their vision in that church. But that person may have a call, probably has a call outside of the church that cannot be fulfilled in the church. Doesn't mean they can't volunteer some of their time. Doesn't mean that they can't, you know, help with certain things. That's community, that's family, but it's different in that regard. And so shout out to my pastor, really, really great, really, really great guy. His wife, Pastor Pam, amazing people. And so not all churches are like that. But see, as the church, we've made it all about sacrifice. We've made it all about self-abasement. We've made it all about self-abandonment in the name of take up your cross, which is completely misinterpreted, you know? And the people making the most impact on the world when it comes to faith-based human development are Christian leaders like Dr. John C. Maxwell, Dr. Jim Richards, Ed Milet, Erwin McManus, who deliberately stepped outside of the institutionalized church world to do it, it would seem. I can't speak on their behalf, but it seems like this is what they did. It seems they understood that you can't help billions of people grow and grow your own wealth to a place that can actually activate world change if you stay inside the religious world, inside of the institutionalized church. And so speaking of influencers that stepped out of the church to impact millions of people, I had an unbelievably impactful and very healing experience last Saturday. I went to the Life Surge conference. I don't know if you've seen those conferences. Dr. John Maxwell speaks at a lot of them. Nick Vujicic, did I say it right? He's the man with no arms and legs. And they are out there, Ed Milet spoke at the one that I went to, and they are out there making it happen. Okay. And I went to the conference, and here's the thing. Some of you know that about 8 years ago, a company called Scripps Network reached out to me to interview me and to pitch me to HGTV for a possible show about flipping houses. And the Life Surge conference opened up with two twins I'd never heard of before. Maybe you've heard of the Benham brothers, Benham Benham brothers. I'd never heard of them, never seen them before. And these dudes were raised in a pastor's home. Awesome. And they thought that for sure both of them would be in the ministry after. They thought being called to ministry meant being called to the church, specifically to the institutionalized church. After playing in the MLB, both of them were drafted into the MLB, that they'd be pastors. But God kept nudging them into other spaces, into other places. And so they started doing real estate by the Bible. They read the Bible, they'd apply it to business. And lo and behold, Scripps Network called them. It was about a year before they had called me. And so they recruited these dudes hard. And they ended up getting a contract. HGTV gave them a contract. They accepted it. And it was all, I mean, you guys are going to be the rising stars right next to Chip and Joanna Gaines. It was about that time that they had gotten their start, kind of same era, right? They were supposed to be, along with Chip and Joanna and the Fixer Upper show, like the next big thing, okay? And the whole time they're telling their story, I'm sitting there going, I'm at the Life Surge conference. I'm like, how have you never heard of these two? I've never seen them on TV. And my husband, Ramel's sitting there and he's thinking the exact same thing. Now, let me tell you something. The things going down in my life at the time that Scripps Network asked me for a couple of rounds of selfie videos, video of my family, videos of the houses we were flipping, basically doing an interview. The things going on in my life at that time were nothing short of devastating. My mom was in a coma. She was given a near zero chance of survival. One of my daughters spun out on the freeway going over 70 miles an hour. Her life barely spared while 6 other cars piled up behind her. It was horrifying. My other daughter was facing a significant high impact emotional event. And so the house that we were flipping was literally falling apart at the seams. And the inspector that we had sent in before we got it didn't catch it. We didn't catch it. And we're experts at what we were doing. And it was unreal. And I can honestly say I don't have a chip on my shoulder about the situation per se, because I know in my heart God always brings things around for good. For those that love him, he works things out for us for good, for the better. We always get to come out ahead if we stay in faith, the people that love God. But I definitely felt a little bit cheated out of the opportunity. I just flat out could not bring my whole self to the interviews. I could not step into the full me. I was a fraction of the energy that I normally put out to the world because I felt like my world was falling apart. And it's very hard to have that vibration of life being amazing when your world is crumbling. And not that I didn't know God was going to help me. I knew I had victory on the other side. But man, pain is hard, right? You're tired, you're zapped, you're exhausted, And so they say for TV, you have to actually be at 120%. That's how you're supposed to be for TV. You got to overdo it a bit, right? Listen, I wouldn't have given me a show if I were HGTV. So I don't blame them. I just don't. But to be honest, it took Ramel and I both a while to be able to watch HGTV again, HGTV. And again, not just because of a chip on our shoulder or any bitterness, but it reminded us of that season in our lives. We didn't want to relive. I mean, you don't want to have to go back to that, Anyway, the Benham brothers showed up to day one of filming their new show, day one, only to find out that the woke anti-religious freedom mob had convinced HGTV that these guys were too much of a risk, that they were haters and transphobics and all the things. And if you know any real follower of Jesus, you know that that's not true about us. We are pro-woman and pro-human rights. We're pro-marriage, the way that the Bible defines it, and pro-human rights. So you do what you want, I'll do what I want. Just don't ask us to deny our conscience by affirming yours. And vice versa, right? And so they weren't haters in any sense of the word. So they get canceled before they even get to film their first show. They get a phone call. Hey, manager, sorry guys, just kidding. I mean, talk about unbelievable shock and stress and disappointment. And that is why you've never seen them on HGTV, and neither have I. So listen, but their testimony went deeper than that. And this is what was so cool. In order to get as far as they did, to get the contract and to get to day one of filming, they did commit to HGTV that they wouldn't share their faith or Christian beliefs of any kind when they were on the show, when they were talking about the show or representing HGTV. And deep down, they felt themselves compromising. They did. And, I know Chip and Joanna have built an empire. And I am absolutely certain they use their resources because, to help people, because that's what any wealthy person does. There's unbelievable tax advantages to doing that. They easily get called out if they don't. So even just from that perspective, but I think they're generous people. And so I think they've probably made a massive difference in a lot of people's lives. And that's amazing, right? But I don't know if you caught some of the commercials the Fixer Upper couple did in 2020. So 2020 was an awful year. I remember working hard on raising my level of influence online before 2020, only to find out for a fact that Zuckerberg, doing what all of us knew was true, we saw the facts from our algorithms. And now we know by his own public confessions, he was working with the government to suppress our voices. And I remember at the time trying to be diplomatic, okay, in my response to what was going on in the world. The world's falling apart, and I'm trying to be diplomatic. See, diplomacy has a light and a dark side, in my opinion, depending on how you're using it, okay? On the positive side, it can help bring two opposing sides together in a neutral, non-offensive way. Sounds like a good thing on the surface, right? But the truth is, when we engage in diplomacy, we have to, in whole or in part, abandon authenticity. In whole or in part, somewhere in trying to play a diplomatic role, appeasing both sides, okay, that's what it is. I find that there's some part of self, sense of right and wrong, sense of self that you have to abandon in order to do that. And so we found ourselves, Ramel and I, trying to appease both sides of the 2020 conversation on social media. And so, we immediately felt sick. We felt sick about it. We felt sick for being diplomatic so the people we worked so hard to follow us wouldn't reject us. That was really the motivation. If we were to be honest with ourselves, we took those posts down because we just felt sick about it. And I determined that never again would I live outside of my authenticity, because people were hurt by what happened in 2020. Families were destroyed. And of course, the facts come out later, and everything that we stood on was true. When you don't live by your God-given authenticity, people are hurt. People get hurt. Be who you say you are, or be nothing. You can't help anyone be who they really are if you can't be who you really are. Finding your purpose is very much rooted in authenticity. Authenticity matters. It's a big, big deal. And so my point is this. I have no idea why it never occurred to me that not getting the show on HGTV was about the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It would have destroyed my heart. The compromise it would have taken to keep it. See, because what you compromise to get, you will have to compromise even more to keep. What you compromise to get, you will have to compromise even more to keep it, to hold on to it. You cannot walk in purpose while walking in compromise. Compromise, what ends up happening when you compromise, when you choose appeasing both sides, when you choose the ugly side, the dark side of being diplomatic about everything, you lose some of yourself. You are compromised. And when you compromise, eventually what sets in is self-condemnation. It's not God condemning us. The Bible says that we are actually condemned by our own hearts. It's our own hearts that condemn us, not God. It's not even knowledge of his law. It's not any of those. It's not spiritual warfare. It is our own hearts that bring us under condemnation. We are not being authentic, and we know it. And when that happens, discouragement means to discourage, to take away courage. So when you're playing the compromise game, you're eventually starting to condemn yourself because you know you're not being authentic. Then you start getting discouraged. Then you're not courageous. So you lack courage. Ultimately, you eventually are a coward. That's where that goes. And I didn't want to, I could never live with myself like that. And I'd have been stuck in I'd have been owned, y'all, owned. So when these two brothers talked about how God has given them immense influence with millions of people, they've become very wealthy without HGTV's money, and how happy they are that they get to live authenticity without compromise. authenticity without the forced compromise of diplomacy. Or you could say authenticity without the compromise of forced diplomacy. I'm telling you, man, my heart was just set free in an instant. And, you know, most Christians would hear me say this and they'll be like, see, Christy, aren't you grateful that God let all that pain into your life? Aren't you grateful your mom was in a coma? I mean, your mom made it. She didn't die, right? Your daughters are still alive, but you didn't have to compromise yourself on that shit. No, listen. That is that stupid theology about how God uses pain in our lives to get us to the places he wants us to be. No, I am not grateful that my mom almost died, and I'm not grateful she lost 3 months of her life and had to learn how to walk again and had to learn how to talk again and still suffers from PTSD in hospitals and other situations that trigger it. I'll never be grateful for the pain that my daughters faced, the fear that they faced, what they went through. I hate pain about as much as I hate compromise with diplomacy. And in my mind, making peace with pain by saying, oh, good, thank God I had pain because I avoided this over here, or I would have done this, or I really had to learn a lesson. That's diplomacy. That's compromise. Why? Because pain was never part of God's plan. It's not even in his nature. It's not even in his ability to wish or even allow pain in your life. Well, how does pain happen? Well, pain happens because God gave me the authority on the earth. He gave us dominion. He gave us the same autonomy that he has. We cannot be forced to act. Autonomy. So, don't try to bring that argument to me. I'll tell you what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for a God that takes all of the awful and works it together for our good. Because what I wish had happened was that I had just sought God and asked him, hey, God, should I let Scripps Network interview me at all? I'm going through a pretty tough time right now. Am I going to miss out if I say no to this? Or if I was going through the greatest time in my life, I wish I had just sat there and said, God, I'm sitting in your presence and I will walk away from this if you tell me this will hurt me more than it will help me. And if I had had the confidence and trust in him to just walk away feeling satisfied, like I hadn't missed a thing, even if I never understood why, even if it took 8 years to figure it out. That's what I wish had happened. I wish I had used God's way of training us, which is with wisdom, walking in wisdom, the Holy Spirit, and the Bible. That's how he disciplines us. That's how he trains us. If we only learn our lesson because 3 massive, painful experiences come our way, and that's when we go, okay, I guess I won't do that, God. That's on us. That is not on God. That is us that can't figure it out. You can't attribute pain to a good God. You just can't. He's either good and only good, or he's not. So, soapbox, I digressed. You know, God would have given me the answer from day one, so I wouldn't have spent 8 years wondering how wealthy I would be right now if I hadn't been cheated out of this opportunity. If I had just asked him, but that's okay. He knew I would have hated what I would have had to compromise and to become to get where HGTV wanted me to be, where they were comfortable with me being, where they didn't feel threatened with who I was. He knew I would have felt like I had sold my soul. And essentially, I would have. I look back and I know for certain now, I didn't miss a thing. Yeah, I was honestly waiting for that to come. This is how I reconcile. I said, well, you know what? If I'm supposed to be on HGV, it's going to come back around. I'll wait. It's okay. You know what? Now I lead a movement of women across the country who advance our shared values of economic freedom, human dignity, and personal responsibility. And I would never be able to lead this movement had I been compromised and out of touch with the real me. I wouldn't have been asked to apply. I wouldn't have been hired if I had been inauthentic. If I couldn't, how can I lead people to be their best if I can't even show up as the real me? I wouldn't be doing any of this right now if I'd gotten HGTV. I'd be owned, y'all, owned. And if you've listened to me long enough, you know I cannot be owned. Oh my gosh. If there's anything I hate, it's amazing how the minute you become part of the machine, whether it's the institutionalized church, whether it's the political party machine, whether it's mainstream media, TV machine, you're attached to the machine. And it is nearly impossible to not lose your authenticity. It can be done. It is just rare. It is rare. And maybe this is why social media and podcasts like this are taking over media, because people want to hear from real people who are being the real them without compromise. So hearing these twins was amazing. I made sure I told them my story in like 2 seconds, and I got a photo with them. Show you guys the photo, but they're just cool. They're just cool. I will say I went to their podcast. This is not an endorsement of any theological position. So know that. There's definitely things they preach on their podcast that I don't agree with, but they helped me come to peace and healing that I should have been able to do on my own. But you know how it is. We don't always listen. We're always growing. I do not have all the answers. If I did, I don't know what I would be doing in this world if I had all the answers. Who knows? Well, I'd be God, so that would be different. Anyway, okay, so you might be wondering how we started this conversation. We had the lovely Laura Bull, and then we took a few S-curves down the awful memory lane of 2020, and then we landed on the Benham Brothers and HGTV. I'm so glad you asked. But before I bring this home, I just want to remind you, if you're not on my mailing list, go to christynarcy.com and sign up. I have a free gift for you. There's 2 free on-demand teachings and a free printable that you can keep with you. And it's called 8 Steps to Calm Anxiety and Get Your Sparkle Back. Get your sparkle back. From somebody who has dealt with PTSD and anxiety disorder and all the things. It's a tool. It's a tool for your toolbox. May not fix everything. It might, because it's based on the Word of God. But it might be a layer for you that will help. So go check that out. Okay, so here's the deal. The power of authenticity when it comes to your purpose literally cannot be overstated. That is why I think Laura is such a genius at it. She has this process that literally leaves all hints of religion out of it and pulls the authentic you out of it, out of you, pulls the real you out of you. And which, by the way, happens to be the very thing God would do for us if we would be more concerned about his opinion and less about the opinion of others. You know, Laura, for all I know, Laura's an atheist, Buddhist, Hindu. I have no idea. I have no clue where she falls politically. Doesn't matter. Who cares? When it comes to uncovering the real you, she has this gift that just cuts straight to the heart. And I actually had an amazing opportunity to have about 30 minutes of consultation with Laura this week. And if you go through her book and you do the homework, which took me a couple of months, but then you can book a consultation with her and she'll help you go over and troubleshoot what you came up with. And she looked a little bit surprised at how starstruck I was that it was like actually her. I was like, oh my gosh, it's really you. Like, it's not one of your minions. It's you, you know? Yeah. Loved her. Absolutely loved her. And so, listen, I realize that not everyone listening to this podcast is looking to build a brand or be an influencer, but the reality is your brand is the real you. So it should be. And so some of the work she has you do won't necessarily apply, but I still say go get the book and read the book. And no, I'm not getting anything for promoting this. But Laura asked me to share, she asked me, what's your shared value with you and the people that you're trying to reach, with your audience, the people that you want to bring in. And I told her, I'm looking to lead and impact leaders of leaders. I want to lead leaders of leaders. And I know, and you know, that people may be born to lead, but that doesn't mean that they know how to lead. Leaders are made, not born. You can be born to lead. It doesn't mean you have the skill of leadership. And so I want to talk to leaders of leaders. That's who I want to impact. I want to teach people who are born to lead how to lead. And when I mentioned my work in grassroots policy and how unbelievable I have found it that politicians are, I mean, it's not unbelievable, but it's unbelievable, are some of the most emotionally unhealthy, inauthentic leaders on the planet. I can see her brain kind of like working through. And then just as a quick aside, she said, you could probably make a killing teaching politicians this stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm sure I could. I will have to hire her for marketing consulting, which she does do. And I really look forward to being able to do that. I love her and I think she's going to help me a lot. But especially if I decide to go after politicians and say, hey, I definitely want to teach you something, because I'm going to need help messaging in a way that actually gets politicians to care about investing in their leadership skills and their emotional health. Oh my goodness. Some do. There's some out there that care a great deal. We need more that care a great deal. We need more public servants, period, that care about emotional health and leadership. The presidential election will be so clear to you after reading this book. Okay, I'm teaching you things. This is not all about read the book. Okay. But I nearly fell over at the results of, I know we all did, right? Got my Trump hat. But I immediately thought of her, okay, because she obviously wrote the book before the election, but she details in it how Oprah was able to blow through every glass ceiling out there and literally be an empire because of key components about her brand. And so like her or don't like her, don't care, it doesn't matter. She was open with her followers about her struggles in life. So even though she was this mega influencer, part of why she got there was she had the incredibly rare asset of being open about the places she struggled and didn't understand and what she was searching for and looking for. And that is authenticity. Then Laura compares her to Hillary Clinton. Hillary totally and completely failed to remove herself from the Bill Clinton legacy image and failed to build a brand of her own. She failed to build a brand of her own. Had she become and exuded a woman who was whole and healed from the scars that Bill left and his embarrassing failures, she would have been someone people trusted. But she never did it. She came off as angry and mean and untrustworthy. And so now I'm sure you're thinking about Kamala Harris. I don't know. Tomato. I know it's offensive to some of you. I just haven't taken time to study it. But that's not offensive to my listeners. Forget that. It doesn't matter. Whether you like her or not, the woman completely and totally failed to make herself a brand that stood apart from Biden. She just failed. And the fact that she only had a couple of months to campaign really wasn't the issue. Had she been building a brand, an authentic brand, decades ago, instead of living in the Democrat machine, she might have been able to pull off a win. Sadly, those political machines don't let you step out. This is the hard part of all of it, right? And both of these women wanted to win. They wanted to be the first female president to break that glass ceiling. They wanted to they were trying to run on women being empowered and independent, but they didn't have their own brand. Their brand was the machine. I hope you're getting the grit of what I'm saying, because it's just so important. Instead of just admitting that she and Biden got it wrong on a lot of major issues, okay, she doubled down defending their failures, but simultaneously she flipped on her position on multiple issues, right? So how do you're doubling down defending the failures, but at the same time you're flipping your position on multiple issues that you have never ever been on that side of. Okay. Did she just suddenly have a change of heart? No. Forced diplomacy through compromise through forced diplomacy. You don't get to do that and win. You just don't. You just don't. And then there's Trump. Okay. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. Trump is Trump. That's why he makes both parties so stinking mad. Trump is Trump. Trump is not Biden. Trump is not some other something. He's who he is. He refuses to stay in the lines. He refuses to conform. He may be a complete mess, whatever you think, but he's authentically a mess. Authentic about it, and like it or not, that's why people trust him. That's why. They trust him to do what he says he's going to do, because he is who he is, and he doesn't apologize for it. Abe Lincoln got the nickname Honest Abe, and he loved it. History says he loved being called Honest Abe. And I have to say, if there's any great thing to be called, I would like to be called Honest Christy. Like, that's a good thing to be known for. 8, I believe it was, failed campaigns. But he stayed in the game. He stayed on brand with his messaging from day one. This is what he thought from the end. This is what and when he finally gets in, his messaging was born from his convictions and his authenticity, and he changed the world for the better. That's exactly what I want to be. I want to be someone that you trust, because I haven't compromised my gut feelings, my instinct, my sense of self, and my knower. My knower that tells me what's right, what's wrong. Just, compromise it just to get a few clicks, a few shares. It's not worth it to me. The highest frequency of vibration is truth. And the highest truth is God himself. And as a result of God being the ultimate truth, the truth of who you are should be the natural byproduct of abiding in the heart of God. That should be what comes forward in you. That should be what comes forward in you. And it's attractive. When people see that you're being the real you, there's a vibration of truth that is so powerful. And people people are drawn to it. It's a magnet. Living at who you really are, living at your highest vibration as much of the time as you possibly can, I think would be a great goal. It'd be a great goal for all of us. Okay. I actually have so much more to say about this. I learned so much from the moment I was like, I'm going to talk about purpose. And then just so many cool things happened. And so we've barely tapped the surface. I promise we will get into the part where, how do you know your purpose? So we'll make this part 1 and we'll do more of our convo, dive in next week. And listen, I know this always sounds super redundant, but I cannot tell you how much value there is liking, sharing, adding friendly comments to this, letting me know what you think about these messages. And you can disagree, but do it nicely. Be nice. Just be nice. People like nice people. We're trying to get the message out to the world, this message of the gospel of peace, where there is peace between you and God. He's not angry at you. He's not mad at you. He's fully in love with you. And we're trying to get the message of we're trying to get the anti-religious, anti-American Christianity version of the gospel out. So we can give people the gospel of peace that Jesus talked about that will actually set them free. So I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you next time.